So, to take us through Google's UCP, it's my pleasure to welcome Wine Owners' very own Marco Donizelli. Marco is architect of how Wine Hub System of Record and best-in-class e-commerce platforms work seamlessly together to address the most complex of wine e-commerce needs. Marco is based in Norway, so we are super delighted to have him here in London. Marco, so here we have an open source specification that enables AI agents to shop on behalf of people like you and me, not just to make recommendations. Do you want to take us into a little bit more detail around what UCP is?
Yes. So, like you said, UCP is not a product, it's not a framework, it's not a system, it's a specification. So, it's a bunch of documents that aim at unify and streamline and collaborate together all the components of an automatic e-commerce experience from the product discovery to the fulfillment. So it extends what probably most of you, or at least the one that have the webshop with us, know already as the product discovery that we have, which is a specification that we use, for example, to expand the business to the current marketplace like Wine Searcher, Vivino, or Google Shopping. So either the checkout is done inside the application like Vivino or is sent back to the website. So it's a very heterogeneous system. And there's also nothing new per se. It was launched in January because in September last year there was a specification created by OpenAI and Shopify called ACP, which is Agentic Commerce Protocol. I'm not going to bore you with acronyms and everything, but it was only focused on payment integration. In fact, it's coming from PayPal. Okay, but it's the one that probably you heard is the one that is at the base of what you heard already as such initiatives like OpenAI and Shopify, Microsoft Copilot, Perplexity Instant Buy, and Amazon AI Assistance. All of them use the same ACP protocol, which is just for payments. So UCP wants to extend that to cover every single step from A to Z, from product discovery to checkout fulfillment and also even more. So why do we need it? Because we just want to basically remove the separation that for today for the end customer is between the search and then the decision making that he has to do after the search. So what happens when I find the products? I gotta do filtering, I gotta compare, I gotta check, I gotta go to the website. Is it good enough? Do they have the payment that I want? No, come back, research, go to another place, compare, and so on. So that's not what we want to achieve in the future, and that's what UCP, as a glue that puts all together, wants to be solving. So basically the aim is that we want to give a more unified user experience and a more deterministic shopping experience, where the customer always uses the same tool from how to discover the products to how to pay. It doesn't have to, oh, where am I going now? Why does it look different? Do they have what I want? And so on and so forth. So, of course, part of this, very important, is that the payment specification on which UCP is based for is extremely important, because one of the key points here is to allow the customers to pay in the way, in the method they are preferred, which is very important for trust and remove any friction. And also from you guys that probably will want to adopt this specification, you don't have to worry about, like we do now, when I get a request from one of you and say, we want to go on Wine Searcher, we want to go on Google Shopping, we want to go on Vivino. It's 3 different implementations, 3 different specifications, 3 different systems. Here, it's just one system that can serve them all. Okay? And the most important thing, and I think from your perspective, and it's the last point as to answer why this was created, is because with this specification, you, as a retailer, retain the control of the business. So you are the merchant of record. It's not Amazon, it's not Perplexity, it's not Microsoft, it's not OpenAI, it's you. So you have the full ownership of the customer relationship. So I think these are the most important reasons why this specification was created by Google.
Okay, interesting. How does UCP work in layman's terms?
I mean, it's a specification, so it's I personally haven't read it because it's not up to me to implement the system. It will be up to me to be compliant, but it's a huge specification. But the interesting thing is that it can be summarized in 4 main key goals and 4 main clear participants and roles. The key roles are interoperability, like I say, bridge the gap between the consumer services, the interfaces that the customer use to find and buy, the businesses that are the one offering the products and implementing the checkout, and the payment system. Discovery, allow the customer to, as I say, not only discover the products, but also what the business can support, what a business that is the end point of the purchase experience, support in terms of course, payment, in terms of fulfillment, in terms of shipping, in terms also of bonus, fidelity, subscription, gift, discounts, and everything. Security, of course, extremely important. We will address that more later. But it has to be absolutely enforced so that exchange of sensitive user data and payment data is absolutely secure. And the 4th key goal, which is often confused with the whole project, is agentic e-commerce, meaning enable an AI agent and all its intelligence, all its smart capability of taking good decision to act on behalf of the users to complete the purchase complex. So turn everyday conversation into commerce. So these are the 4 main goals.
So that bit, just to be clear, is the agent not having had the conversation with you about what wine you want to buy for this weekend, but feeding off the LLM conversation that you've had within whatever surface, i.e. search or AI search, whatever that you're working within. Is that right?
Yeah. So the AI agent actually is the director of the orchestra. So it's the one that is getting the input, the intent from the customer, and thanks to the LLM technologies, is understanding what he wants, and then he goes off, finds what he wants, hopefully, because the businesses have provided all the information as we see later on, and then comes back with an answer, and then, depending on the intent of the customer, can close the purchase automatically and automate everything, or can simply say, this is what I found, you go and click buy and complete the checkout. Okay. So the participants are, again, there is no new invention here. The participants are the agent, as I say, which is the consumer-facing surface acting on behalf of the user. So it's really the orchestra director, which has all the elements, starting from the input to the discovery, to the presentation of the results, and to the analysis of what the business can offer, the trust that there is in that business. So do I offer it or not to the end customer, and how this order can be fulfilled, if it can be fulfilled based on the requirements of the customer and everything. Then there is the entity selling the goods, which is the merchant of record. Then there is the credential provider, which is basically the trusted entity where all the UCP delegates to securely managing and sharing the sensitive user data, payment instruments, shipping addresses, and everything. So typically, Google Wallet. And then you have the payment service providers, of course, which are the one that implements the actual payment. So you can have Stripe, PayPal, IDN. Okay. So it's 4 keywords and 4 participants, each participant implementing and collaborating one of the keywords, and that is pretty much what our UCP is implemented. Or it should be implemented, because remember, it's a specification. Of course, it's not, just to finish, it's not the only specification. There are already other existing specifications on which UCP is built on. More importantly, one is called the MCP, which is the model, I don't remember anymore the C, but the protocol, which is actually the language where the data is transmitted. And then you have the A2A, which is an evolution of the ACP, which is the payment protocol, which deals with everything concerning payment and security and all the stuff. So it's big specification that I think we should trust cover pretty much everything.
Okay, so on the basis that we trust that it's deliverable and it's safe, what we really want to know here is what are the benefits of UCP, and do you see UCP being applicable to wine merchants and retailers?
Yeah, of course, we are talking about e-commerce. When you sell wine, you are part of the e-commerce. So you reap the benefits that apply to all e-commerce. So there are already studies that have proved that there are almost 2.3 higher sales because of this hyper-personalization and conversation-based way of shopping. So for the end customer, it's a much better experience. So we have a much higher customer satisfaction. Okay, every recommendation is far more personalized and timely. So there is willing to buy again because it's a very good experience to shop. Reduced cart abandonment, smart upselling. You have powered cross-selling and upselling by AA agent as well. Intelligent gifting, so you can associate gifting to products of automatic gifting to customer base again on some rules, and then automatic subscription management, all these kind of benefits. In terms of the wine industry, in my humble opinion, that's where I put myself on the line. I see an enormous potential to basically satisfy the need for people like me that want still to enjoy wine but don't know anything about wine. For me, the reviews by another party is Arabic because it's so technical and I don't understand the terminology, the jargon, but I still want to ask, I want to do this kind of dinner, I want to buy this kind of wine, how much do I need? I want to buy in this range, is available by tomorrow. So take away all the pain that right now I have to do to find it, because everything is conversational. Now, Nick will give you an example. It's much easier, it's much more user-friendly, and it's actually an enjoyable experience. So for me, there is a massive amount of customers there that are ready to tap into this market. But you can say, Marco, you're talking just about drinking.
No, absolutely. And you're actually not just talking about drinking, you're talking about the future of the wine industry. Last October when we had our conference session, we were talking about people like me who are sadly getting older and drinking slightly less than we used to in our heyday, and slightly less. And yet, there is a challenge in terms of bringing the next generations on board, making wine accessible. It's the threshold is higher than it used to be in the past. It's more expensive to get in at a certain level, and so anything that can help provide assistance, on-ramps for the next generations to get into wine. Matt Tilbury's here. Where are you, Matt?
I'm here.
Cool. So Matt's doing amazing things with clarity in introducing Gen Zs into wine through events. He's got 4 events next month, I believe. Yeah. All of this matters, and this kind of accessibility, if you like, I think is quite exciting. So I kind of went online and asked for a kind of wine made naturally to go with a Vietnamese takeaway this weekend. I'm going to have. And the first question that Gemini asked me was, are you looking for a natural wine, which can be funkier, cloudier, or are you just looking for a clean, low intervention wine that tastes more traditional? I mean, shit, this is amazing stuff, right? And I'm thinking, God, this is an incredible concept. And then it presents me with a list of wines that it would recommend based on, I think, natural wines, and with links to the sources of supply there. So I said, no, I'm actually after clean, low intervention wine that tastes more traditional. It's me, right? And it came back with the response that defined a clean, low intervention wine that tastes traditional, look for organic or biodynamic certifications from established French regions. That's a peu chauvin, it's a large language model. These wines avoid the funky or cloudy traits of some natural wines whilst maintaining the high standards of minimal additives and sustainable farming, which is, of course, the thing that I care about most. So this is happening. This is really interesting. So imagine that, and all of those links to all of those recommendations that large language model has served you, and you connect that up to the agents, and I think that's pretty interesting. And yes, we are talking about drinking wines. I think for wine businesses, for fine wine businesses, let's see. As you say, it's a specification. It is evolving. It is open source. It is clearly reliant on people contributing to it over a period of time. There are existing specifications that refer to things like customized checkout processes, which I suspect would speak quite well to things like variants and to deliveries of wine on, say, a 30-day pre-order basis rather than wines that can be delivered the following day. There are three elements within those standards. One is called cart, one is called catalogue, and the other is called identity linking. You can review the agent selected wines as we mentioned, as Marco mentioned a few minutes ago, where the agent goes shopping, fills the basket, but there's the option to bring the basket back to you for you to then review before deciding whether to check out. There's a piece around variance and availability, and there's the ability for a buyer to link their current accounts where they already shop with the UCP environment as well. So they can essentially seed the relationship in terms of the execution of the transaction to the agent, whilst sharing all of the information with the agent that then determines whether they are on a loyalty program, whether they're going to get free shipping, whether they're going to get discounts. It's quite clever. So, Marco, do you see any consumer behavioural barriers to adoption?
No, I mean, in the sense that unless a computer is understood, the agent is basically doing what you tell them to do. So it's responding to your intent. So when I hear people say, "Oh, but they're going to buy from me automatically," if you tell them so. If you say, "Go find and buy," the agent will go find and buy. But if you tell the agent, "Go find and show me," the agent will go find and show you, because that is what an LLM intelligent system do. If you say, "Go find and show me," and he will buy, then the AI has failed, because he has completely misunderstood you. So in my humble opinion, that is not really a big deal. It will be you that decide how this is going to go all the way or not. Of course, there are two elements that we need to consider here. One is security, and the other is compliance because of the alcohol element. Security is fun enough, because most of my job right now is to block bots. But now my job is to enable bots, because you want to sell, because a bot is coming to your shop and buy. So there will be someone that has to tell me, okay, how do I recognize that this bot is legit and it's not one of these North Korean eating bots that is destroying the sites right now. So this is actually very interesting. Of course, there is also the authorization. Is this bot doing what the customer is telling to do, or is just going on an hallucination by itself? And its authenticity is actually, the request is accurately reflects the user true intent or not. And then accountability. If something goes wrong, okay, in all this scenario where everything pretty much is automated, who is going to be responsible, who is going to be accountable? So all these parts are partly addressed by the payment specification and so on, but I'm pretty sure there will be more and more on that. And the second one is the compliance, of course, because for alcohol regulations, you can simply not make any claim about health when you're recommending a wine. Otherwise, you end up in so much trouble. So in the US, this is one of the key points, what is called FPP, federal, something like that. Anyway, so in the US, this is a big, because right now, as Nick said, this is mostly adopted in the US. So this is one of the things that has to be built into this agentic e-commerce, is the ability to automatically handle compliance, not only about the rule, about promoting alcohol or not promoting alcohol and everything, but also about where to ship. Am I compliant with the shipment of the state, and so on and so forth. So these are the two things that I don't see them as negatives, but as concerns that needs to be fully addressed before we can move forward safely.
So I'm sold. Okay, let's say I'm sold. How does a business get involved?
Okay, so this is I think there are 3 areas. First of all, let's call it the UCP area. So it's not your web shop, it's not your backend, it's the UCP area. UCP is a specification, you need to comply with the specification. There is no other thing about that. Meaning, you have to publish your product data. You have to optimize your product data. You have to make sure that your product listing and reviews and everything else is machine readable, is complete, is correct. They are correctly categorized and everything. So there is much, much more data into this product and publication than what we are used to doing now for wine search. Here we are talking, Google is extending more and more day by day the specification to add more information, which is fulfillment, is reviews, is what the wine is good for, what is good to be paired, the type of is biodynamic, is vegan, everything that you can think of, you have to be able to
anticipate the sort of dialogue that's going to be happening at the front end of that kind of intent-based conversation.
Correct. So you can't think only about price and availability, you have to provide a lot of information. Okay. Also, you need to be clear about your delivery, fulfillment, and the return policies. This is extremely important to sort of give you the white stamp as a proper seller in this automatic environment. And then you have to be clear about what your capabilities are, or extra capabilities, so you can offer cloud memberships, subscriptions, discounts, upsells, and everything. Because remember, your site is not visited in this scenario. Nobody hits your site. They only look at the actual documents that you put before your site, and they are grabbed by the agent, and the agent is getting all the information of what you can offer, what you can do from this document. So you need to be compliant with this. But I don't think actually this is basically on you. It will be, the Shopify is already producing that automatically for you. We just got the news today that everybody that is not on Shopify can use Shopify today to be part of the e-commerce. So this is something that I will not really be worried. This is the tech. This is something that probably is on me. Which
reinforces that we're entering a world where best-in-class platforms like Shopify or WooCommerce, are complete no-brainers. It's minor insanity to probably try and do something else that is proprietary or home built.
But also I see a drive to collaboration, right? So what we expect from you is that you have to accept the fundamental shift, which is your aim is no longer to get people to your site, okay? Because your site is not doing the selling. The question is not how you rank, it's not how your pages keep the people on the site. It's whether you are chosen by the AI agent as one of the candidates for the customer to fulfill his intent.
Of course, you've still got your existing customers, you've still got people who have relationships with you, you want them to come to your website, you still want that to be beautiful, you still want the experience to be amazing, but you probably also want to state your case in terms of how you're positioning and what your service delivery looks like and all the rest of it.
Yes, so it's no longer sufficient to describe what you sell, but how the things that you sell can be used, okay, to answer basically questions. So there is a pretty much a shift in your site. I don't think it's going to be, or it is going to be, so of course, still evaluated in click-through, which is always the metric that we use for SEO, but the new metric is going to be buy-through, how you facilitate the process of buying through your website from product discovery to the checkout. So that's why you have to accept a fundamental shift that basically move from what we call traditional SEO to agent commerce optimization, or AEO, which is agent engine optimization, okay, where you are not really focused on your site, you are focused on the external factor that is using your site to sell. And so you have to perfect the product feed, the schema markup, all this kind of stuff will be important, but also
you handle that.
Yeah, but also extremely important is the trust.
Won't Google favour businesses who spend on AdWords, or won't it become a paid-for service where you effectively get listed by Google within that kind of Gemini AI environment. What are your thoughts on that?
I don't believe that, because one of the things that Google is making very clear is that ranking and all this stuff is, and what you say probably, something like some sort of monkey business is not going to be part of the choice process. So what is going to be part of the choice process is technical readiness, data precision, and merchant trust. Then those three factors will determine the visibility of you into this thing. So maybe I'm naive, I don't know, but for now, but of course there will be some way of making money, I'm sure, but I trust this process so far.
Great.
So this is, we'll just complete very, very briefly. So this is, you are part of the UCP. Of course, you still have a web shop. I mean, nobody's telling you close the web shop, because the web shop is the end when the buying process ends. So I think you have to accept that you will need to update your content and marketing approach to cover both human and automatic customer bots. Okay, so typically you can think of that most of your content will probably be not converted but duplicated from standard text blog into FAQs, because Q&A is how the agent works. Is answering questions from the customer. So if he finds the answer to these questions, it's going to be much, much better, the type of answer that he can give to the customer. Replicate also the personalized experience on your site as well, what is today called the AI sommelier. Okay, so don't just leave this super personalized system of helping and guiding the customer to shopping through AI, but try to implement it on your website as well. Extend the search from just being a keyword search, which is what the agent does, to be an intent search. Okay, more semantic search, trying to use the search to provide a more complete discovery. And yeah, very much so. I think you still have to focus a lot on your website. And the thing that is a bit, the third is of course what you do in the backend. Okay, because the misconception is that agentic e-commerce is only this chat thing. In reality, no, agentic e-commerce is everything that you use based on AI to facilitate your e-commerce. So there is a lot of back-end processes that you can also, improve. Automatic content push. So you don't call Marco and say, Marco, can you change the banner? Boom, automatic banners on the webshop based on season, marketing trends, analysis of the market, and whatever. Managing automatic deliveries in the US based on bad weather. So you don't have to do it. Check, okay, no, so automatic. This is going to California, the AI agent say, okay, California is raining, all the shipping for a week, blah, blah, blah. All this can be streamlined automatically. Of course, stock management, but this is probably, Nick is going to be telling you about more because this is more hub, okay, and of course, probably help with the regulatory, about the pronunciation compliant, like, taxes and state-based tax and whatever. So I think this is where you should think. But the most important thing is that you have, it's an automatic era. It's not only human today. So we have to be ready for the bots.
We'll be ready for them. Thank you so much for coming. So there you have it, a potentially game-changing protocol that exposes your products and services to a very wide range of potential wine drinkers. We'll be tracking how it rolls out in the US over the next few months, and we will be ready to implement it for you when it becomes available much later in the year. Thank you all very much for listening.